You're listening to another Woodshop podcast, the okayest podcast of its type. Your hosts are Daniel Dunlap of Daniel Dunlap Woodworks, Peter Kapar of P-Tree's Workshop, and Braden Boakes of Littlebug Woodworking. You can find them as well as the podcast on your favorite social media channels.
Welcome to episode 209 of another Woodshop podcast, where this week we are joined by the Leather Daddy himself, a maker from a young age, a tool designer, and a lovable corporate stooge for some of our favorite tool brands, and now the premier leather outfitter for all the makers on the go. When the BDSM community wasn't paying the bills, he turned to woodworkers because we love our shop aprons. The manliest man with a sewing machine that will set fire to our hearts. Please help me welcome Michael Williams from Calaver Toolworks. Woo!
I saw you start to take the sip of beer as this started. I was like, this is gonna be perfect. I love that. I cannot wait to see what happens.
I saw it happen
right
too,
now.
and I was like, he's gonna spit. This is gonna be good. I hope these are funny, so he spits.
No, that was great. I hope that you wrote that whole thing out, and I hope that it was all spontaneous. But either way, it's still freaking great.
I wrote it all with EI. It's like AI, except I just had Emma Intelligence do it, so she wrote it for me.
E-I-E-I-O.
E-I-E-I-O. Speaking of E-I-E-I-O, Dan?
Bingo was their name-o.
There we go.
I think you're talking about our patrons.
I love it. Yes.
Bad, sad news.
What?
We don't have any new patrons this week, you guys.
Dan?
Are we trash?
Oh, wait, that was low.
Are we trash?
Maybe.
Okay.
We didn't lose any, so we're
Maybe.
not trash.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll go with we didn't lose any. I don't know if that's accurate, but
I hope we
we'll
have
pretend like it is.
returning patrons.
We're just not paying out referral bonuses this week, guys. Step it up.
Yeah. Whatever Braden said. Let's instead jump into our VIP patrons, which we always give a shout out at the beginning of the show. And that is Jared Foster of Foster Designs, Jake Miller from A Sweet Shop, Alex Adams from Type A Furniture, John Herbolsheimer from Living Lath Woodworks, Luke Bosworth from TSG Makes, Jared LaPuma from LL Builds, Tyler Booth at Temecula Yard Games, Henry Lutens from Manfreda Wood, Richard Don't Twerk from Elevated Wood Design. I believe that is Scotty. Charlie Coons from Stubby K Studio, Matthew Schmabelman from Schmabelwood Studios. Okay.
Did you have a stroke?
Justin Frazier from
That was
Frazier
worth the price of admission.
Well, Justin Frazier from Frazier Canyon Woodworks, Sarah from Rosie's Woodshop, Jesse McIntyre from Sage Hill Woodcraft, Michael at Gillette Woodworks, El Jefe from Maker's Way, Wim Designs, that is Victor, All Wet and Pathetic, that is Nick Brim Woodworking. Max does not make out with Mindy at Reed Design Co. Oh, I think he's starting a war. Matt Maynard at Patriotic Pines, Bill Burkle from WTB Woodworking, Jake Coneen at Dobby's Craft House. Hold on.
It's a new one.
Yeah, that's a new one. He must have updated. Interesting.
Oh,
I
nice.
didn't even see that. Let's see. Back at it with Justin Addy from Calvary Customs, Ashwood and Falcon. That's Patrick. Scott Shirk at Red Lake Custom Woodworks, Max and Minnie Coons at Stubby K Studio, Justin Bailey from Campfire Woodworks, and for Nance's Design Co. That would be Kyle Nance. Thank you to all of our patrons. We appreciate you guys more than words can ever describe. You help us keep all these lights on.
That is correct. So Jared Foster and Jake Kuneen are both upgrades to VIP.
Yes.
Ooh.
Jared
I'm
upgraded
sorry.
last week.
Oh, that's
we
like
got,
Jake.
we got him last week.
Well, Jared Foster's getting another one.
Okay. Anyway,
I would just like to know if Ashwood and Falcon is the copycat version of Ashwood and Hawk, or
yeah, that's
like,
it's the
Patrick Gitzel. He
it's,
thinks he's funny.
it's
It's
the
the
Timu,
duplicate
it's the
dog.
Timu version.
got it.
The
Emu,
Wish,
that's right. The Wish version.
the Wish.com version.
So if you want to help us out like all these fine people did and do, you can go over to patreon.com/another woodshop podcast and get signed up over there. We appreciate all the support we can get. That's all I got.
Oh, and we appreciate all the support from our patrons and our sponsor this week, who is PwnCNC, for all your solutions for your CNC to not just own your CNC, but dominate it. They've got everything you need from spindle kits, fully completed, ready to go, no soldering, nothing like that needed. Just plug and play. It's awesome. If you also need any other accessories, anything from collets to power strips to wrenches, they've got it all available on their site, and they are amazing at providing support as well. So make sure to check out PwnCNC, PwnCNC.com, and use code AWP for a discount at checkout. And if you have any questions about the systems, we all have a set of them, but reach out to them. They're really good with that support. They really want to make sure that you guys know how to use your stuff, know how to use your machine, and how to bring it to the next level and get the most out of it.
You know what I really love about PwnCNC, Pete?
What is that?
It's a great little homegrown USA-based company. It's a little mom and pop shop that has grown up, and here we are.
Yeah, we're all about big small business here.
That's right.
And we are all a part of big small business, as is Daniel. He built this business from the ground up. I've watched him do this since he just had a couple 3D printers and a couple models and was making hold downs for the CNC, and now he's got a whole business built around these machines. I love it.
Now you can add their products and turn your shop into the Ponder Dome.
Ponder Dome.
I'm workshopping it.
I don't hate it.
Listen, you probably want to lock that down before they jump on it, because this is
PonderDome.com.
Yeah, PonderDome.aus for the Australian market is already locked up. .com was expensive.
Man, see, I went with Pondemonium and I locked all those down, but they didn't bite. Oh well.
This whole like sitting on URLs thing, I read about it on TikTok as like the next money making side hustle. So I've just been buying URLs everywhere. Yeah. So far I'm at negative $9,387.
Yeah, this is just how you invest in the future. You know, you just lock down domains, and you definitely want to get the weird ones. .tr, .in, .co.cc. You know, the weird countries. That's the ones where you're really gonna corner the market, guys. But anyway,
yeah.
Use code AWP for 5% off your order, and there's also a link in the show notes if you want more info. Go check them out, and they're good friends of ours. They're good people, and we like them just like our patrons.
Correct.
They're basically like our patrons.
They're like company patrons.
Well,
VIP
speaking
company.
of other people that we love, absolutely love, and also homegrown small businesses, Michael from Calavera Tools is here, or Calavera Tool Works is here, wearing full leather LARPing armor. And so, Michael, for those of you that don't know who you are, please give us the elevator pitch. Who the hell do you think you are?
Oh, wow. Super duper short version is I am an exile from corporate. I spent 16 years, back up a second. I've been building furniture and making stuff since I was a little kid. And then I figured out that if I went into the industry, they would give me free tools and a paycheck to play with tools. And I was all in.
Way to double dip.
I'm totally not kidding. Once I figured out that you could actually make money, and it wasn't work. It was more like, wow, this is freaking awesome. And it was amazingly easy, because most of the people in the companies where I worked had no idea how to use the tools. And since I had been using them for so long and, doing remodeling and working for construction companies and things like that, And, I like to think that sometimes I make, reasonably good decisions, and I'm reasonably intelligent. And, to those couple of things together, it was just like, wow, I am the only person in this room that has any idea how this tool is used in an actual practical manner. And so I'd be sitting in a board meeting at whatever company and talking about how these tools were used in a real world environment. And everybody's looking at me like, what? Huh? We just know what the engineers say. And it was kind of wild. So that carried me upwards. And so I worked for Stanley Bostitch in nail guns and pneumatics for a while. I designed table saws and miter saws for Bosch Power Tools for several years. A lot of the stuff that's still on the market for Bosch is stuff that I designed in the early 2000s. Bosch is not exactly kept up. Real good people, kind of slow in product development. And then I spent 8.5 years as the vice president of marketing for Festool, and brand management and product management and training and some other stuff. So I did that for a while, and that was pretty amazing. But I got sick of working for the man, and you might not think Festool is the man, but when it's not your bank account that the money's going into at the end of the day, and you're working for somebody else, and if they're German in particular, then you're working for the man. And I was just so desperately tired of working for other people that as good as I had it, it was like, screw this. I got to go start my own company. And so I spent some time trying to buy a company, and ultimately I settled on the fact that I don't want to get into too long of a rabbit hole on this, but I learned something very interesting about, let's say, the baby boomer generation of these 70 and 80-year-old men who had created these companies from scratch and started these really fantastic companies, but they really wanted to sell, but they couldn't sell. And so they literally they couldn't separate themselves from the company. And after beating my head against the wall for a year or so on that, I was like, screw it, I'll just start my own company. And so I started Calavera, designed some products, taught myself how to sew, taught myself the basics of leatherwork. I honestly had no idea about leatherwork whatsoever, knew nothing. But at the time, I thought, oh, well, I'm going to start this company, and I'm going to have a team of seamstresses, and I'm going to have a product management department. I'm going to have a marketing department and an accounting department. I'm going to have all of these departments. We're going to have a compound in this headquarters. And it was going in that direction for a while. Like we had some really big hits. I bought a company around this time, a tool belt, unnamed tool belt company, doesn't need to be named. Ultimately sold that, but in the intervening time, started doing business for the NFL. And so I've designed quite a few things for the NFL over the years since this whole thing started, and still do some business with them. That instant replay. So if you watch any football and you see that blue Microsoft case come off the sidelines, I designed that from the beginning to end, and produced that for all of the NFL, and still support that at a small level, but they will eventually need more. So anyway, that's before any of the leather stuff. So I guess the point I was leading to, sorry, I digressed, was that I thought that I was going to have this great big company, but then once we moved down to Charleston from Indiana, and it was kind of a reset for the business, and I started making the aprons myself after I sold the other part of the company. And I got my hands on it, and it was like the first time in years that I had actually made the product myself, and it felt so good, and I loved it, and I felt like, I don't know, it felt like you're barefoot walking in grass in this beautiful, like field, whatever. Like it just felt right, and being a maker, like no longer being a visitor to Makerland, but actually being one of the people that kind of makes this stuff go. And I'd say that it's funny because I mentioned the whole festival thing. Like, I don't talk about that. I never, Braden, I think when we were talking before, like, y'all had no idea that was kind of part of the resume, because I don't talk about it. I am so much happier with what I've done in the 9 years since I started Calavera than anything I ever did in corporate, because this is all for me and my family, as opposed to, again, working for somebody else. So anyway, so we make aprons, we make belts, we make handbags, we make all of the stuff. And somebody described it fairly recently, and they're like, yeah, I know, like, your whole thing is to over design and overbuild everything to a ridiculous degree. And yeah, that pretty much sums it up, so that it will last for absolute ever.
Funny, so full disclosure here, Michael and I have been in the same room multiple times. We have never actually sat down and chatted, and we've had nothing but fun and hit it off, like, at, you know, the pre-show and everything. And I've known of you for a while, and it's funny because as I was doing research on you, I learned that we have one thing in common, like very much in common. We both got our first sewing machine from our mom. It was a hand.
Yeah, that's right.
So, like, my mother was a seamstress my whole life. She actually she worked in a special room at this factory in Poland where they got special contracts. One of them was Manchester United. So I actually had a custom shirt made for me with the same batch as, like, Beckham when he was playing. David Beckham, you guys don't know because it's the European football.
So bend it like Peter.
Basically, Peyton Manning, whatever the guy, the American soccer guy is. But anyways, I was like, oh man, he got, like, that literally is like the same thing. Like, his mom was into it, he got it, but, like, why sewing? Why leather? Like, what was the mindset behind that?
Really?
Because that was a really left turn.
It was a wild left turn. But so I guess the quickest version was that the company that I mentioned or alluded to a minute ago was this company called Occidental Tool Belt. And I had worked for practically a year trying to buy this company and got really close to the owners. And it was, I had basically $24 million in my back pocket to go buy this company from the team that I had put together, and went, and I had made several visits out to California. We were at a point where literally we were practically packing up the house to move to Sebastopol, California. And there was a very tragic on the other side. So we got the letter of intent. We got it all dialed in. The next thing was the investors were just like, all you got to do is get him the letter of intent and get a counter offer, and whatever amount of money you need, we got, just go get it. And so we were there, and I got the handshake and the pat on the back. And then a week later, the gentleman found out that his wife had a terminal diagnosis, and the whole thing fell apart at literally not midnight, but 11:59 p.m. Like, it was seconds before midnight. And you know what I mean, in metaphorical terms. So anyway, the whole thing had fallen apart, and I was just devastated, absolutely devastated. But I had fallen in love with the leather aspect of all of this. So Occidental Leather makes these just amazing tool belts. And so the research that I was doing, one of my favorite things that I've ever heard in my entire career was Daryl, the owner of this company. I was just picking his brain constantly, to a point where I think he was just like, seriously, just stop. You know enough. But I think to paraphrase, he was like, Michael, you officially know more about tool belts than anybody I've ever met. You don't need to ask any more questions. Like, you got it. And so my point is that I had approached this in such a manner, like I just had to know every single thing about it. And it was love. I just fell in love with this stuff. But I didn't want to compete. I wanted to make something for a different market. And what I saw was this gap in the market. And now I'm going to answer your question. So these beautiful, gorgeous leather tool belts are made in this factory out in California. And it blew my mind that they were making these just amazing tool belts for guys doing rough construction on a job site, like not just working 2x4s, but I mean, these things are out on the concrete phase of a job. I mean, these things just get all manner of
They were
abuse.
not showpieces. They were just literally.
Oh, no, these are just absolute workhorse tool belts. But coming out of the factory, like when you put that thing on, it is absolutely gorgeous showpiece. But it is a showpiece that just gets used and abused, and it gets better with age. And so that's what I aspired to. But then I looked on the other side of things, and not throwing shade at Lee Valley, but the most prominent apron at the time was the Lee Valley apron. And, it's this canvas, kind of khaki and green, looks pretty generic, and they're everywhere. But what I saw was those things were in every cabinet shop, every furniture shop, all of the stuff. And a good buddy of mine, Greg Paolini, had a drawer full of these Lee Valley aprons. Like literally from the last 10 years, he had every apron that he had owned, but they only lasted 2 years because after 2 years, they had holes all in them. They're just completely falling apart. But the reason he kept them was the same reason that the Occidental tool belt wearers kept theirs. Well, theirs last 25 or 30 years, but these aprons have literal blood, sweat, tears, glue, everything you can possibly think. And my buddy Greg, this amazing woodworker, that's a whole other story. But I'm actually looking at his apron. His original apron is 2 feet away from me right now. But those aprons are like a hard drive of memories of all the things that these people did in the shop for years and years. And it's impossible to throw away. You feel like you're throwing away your memories. I've got my tool belt over on the other side of the shop that I bought at a pawn shop when I was 17 years old. And I've got this pretty amazing Badger tool belt, one of the Cordura ones. I've got one of those setups. But I got to be honest, the one that I bought when I was 17, like if I was going to run back into the shop in a fire, if I had to grab one of the two, I'd grab the one from when I was 17, not the $500 setup that my buddy made for me. So all of this is to say is that I wanted to create a product for the woodworkers, the people who are doing fine woodworking and doing really amazing fine level detail stuff. Like, why didn't they have something special that would last for years that they could hand down to their grandkids? You got these rough carpenters who've got this just beautiful piece of equipment, but the woodworkers had something that maybe lasted 2 years, and it was a total disconnect for me. And that was what inspired me to do the leather part. One last thing on that, I can't not mention my buddy Ben Rittering, this amazing furniture builder. At the time, he was out in Central California, and so anyway, when I was at Festool and we were doing a photo shoot, and he was wearing this kind of beat up leather apron that he had cobbled together himself, kind of hand stitched it out of some welder's leather and some other stuff. And so when I was trying to figure out after the whole Occidental thing fell apart, and he was like, "Hey man, why don't I send you this apron and see what you can do with it? And maybe you can make some aprons." And so literally I remember I got it in a USPS priority box. I'd still got it over hanging on the other side of the shop. And so I took that and his apron that he had cobbled together. I used that as the prototype and built every other one off of that basis.
Nice. That's awesome.
That is fascinating.
Damn. So you
legitimately,
you jumped full feet first into that whole thing. Now, let me ask you, I'm going to go out of left field here for a second. I have a very controversial question to ask, and I love this man. He's great. He does a lot of good for the community. But Jonathan Katz-Moses is a savage that wipes glue on his apron. Where do you land on the apron is meant to be that's where you wipe off the glue?
That's it. 100%. That is what an apron is supposed to be for. So we have aprons that, I mean, this is like thick bison leather. You could pour a bottle of glue on it, and in a couple of days you could probably just peel the whole thing off of it. But no joke. That was from the absolute very first apron that we made. Like that was one of the things like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like I can't put glue on it. No, that is exactly the point. You are supposed to put that glue on there. And like I was saying with the Greg Pellini is, I mean, how many times have you cut yourself when you're woodworking? How many times, as your sweat dripped onto that apron? Like that is literally a record of what you were doing out in that shop. And it only gets better with every bit of perspiration, every drop of blood, every bit of glue. I'm an absolute believer in that.
I think oh, go ahead.
It's exactly like every craft fair, every time you're selling something, a cutting board, like, oh, it's too pretty to cut on.
Oh yeah, no, like cut.
No. You got to use.
All right, I get that logic. I get that logic. But I mean, think of how, Dan, and you'll understand that. Well, actually, I think all of us will understand how many shirts a good apron could save. How many glue lines you wouldn't have on your belly because you bent over a glue up. I think I have at least a dozen shirts that just have a random crusty line that will never come out in a wash.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got one right over here that it was a maker friend sent it to me, and I got glue all over it, and it totally ruined the shirt. Like it became brittle and developed a hole in it, and now it's just a shop shirt. You can only do so much with it. But yeah, and I use that in our marketing all the time. It's like, this is an investment in your favorite t-shirts. You are saving those favorite t-shirts so that you can have those longer instead of destroying them with glue or fire or, whatever other normal people use.
I feel like that could be like your next marketing sprint, is just filming content of somebody in like a fancy 3-piece suit and then just like wiping glue on the apron.
I love it.
100%.
So, this is literally a family-run business, except for Belle, your helper.
That's
but
right.
she's basically family, right? So, like, but your wife's helping you out. She does the belts. If I remember correctly, you do the leather work. Your kids do the packaging. Belle does, whatever Belle wants to do, because Belle's in charge of cereal.
Picks the music playlist.
So, Belle is in charge of the music, and she sits on top of the table with her shoes off. Like rarely does Belle wear shoes. Usually on top of a table. Just kind of
same thing with Dan.
Stuff done.
Dan never wears shoes.
Same.
So you're running this family business, and is your wife full time with this as well at this point, right?
Yep.
So like your family run business, both of you are all in on it. The family's in on it. Kids are. You have an employee. We talk to other small business owners all the time. We're small business owners, and we're always worried about like the bottom line, the peaks, the valleys, because like it's not just consistent. We all know that, and I think you mentioned in like the show between a pre-show and now that like this is your slow season now, and I feel like a lot of us are feeling it. So how do you guys do enough peaks to take care of the valleys, or are you like how are you guys doing as a business? Not to get it too far into the details, but like what has your experience been?
So what I always found. And every industry does not match this one, but in power tools, I learned that summer is dead. Like, do not launch new products into summer. People are not spending their money on power tools and accessories, and they're not in the shop. They're on a boat. They're at the beach. They're on vacation. That is where their money is going. And so I've always known the why. It's more a question of like, okay, how do you counteract that? And so to get back to the original question is, our biggest months, no question about it, are October, November, December. And then January, February, March are solid. But then by the time June rolls around, June is the deadest of dead months. It is just crazy. And so every year I say to myself, I'm going to take off the month of June. I'm going to just take it off, spend it with the kids, go on vacation, go do some fun stuff, work on the house, whatever. But I'm not going to work in June, and I'm going to, knock off an Instagram for June. But you can't do that when it is a 3-person shop. You absolutely, if nothing else, like if I took off in June, like what's Belle going to do? If I'm not here giving her stuff to do, then I've got an employee that I just basically kicked out of here for a month.
Just laying on tables with no shoes.
Just laying on tables with
playing
nothing to do.
Yeah, playing music.
But the bigger thing is this: is I could take off the month of June, but then July is going to suck, and August is going to suck. So it's kind of like taking the weekend off. Like I would love to not be on socials and editing videos at in the middle of I don't know, whatever. I don't really watch football or anything. It's like I would rather be out on the boat than doing that stuff. But I still got to get up in the morning and get something on there, because if I don't post to Instagram for a couple of days, it's crickets. The website is absolute crickets.
Start doing welfare checks. Hey man, you good?
Yeah, but that's it. And it's been like that for years. Is so much of our business is driven by social media. And I will say, over the last year, we've done a lot more advertising than we ever did. And the advertising is definitely working. So I could take a couple of days off if I need to, like 5 days on a baseball tournament route or road trip last week. Yeah, stuff like that, like WBC. And, so I can take a couple of days. But again, if I'm MIA for a week, then you're MIA from people's top of mind. And it's like you've got to, it's not that you have to reintroduce yourself, but I don't think people are waking up, and there are definitely a few people who are waking up and consciously going, damn it, where's Michael? Like I needed my Michael.
There are always going to be that few people, but you still have to remind the general population that, hey, I'm here. Hey, don't forget about me.
100%.
And that's a daily thing.
That's part of running a small business.
I feel, and as a small business owner, I feel pretty confident that I'm also speaking for Pete and Dan. But so we all talk about wanting, like, oh, hey, if we work for ourselves, we can take all this time off, we can be more flexible, we can do whatever. But you said I could probably take the month of June off, and we weren't even talking about me, we were talking about you, but I immediately got stressed out about the idea of just taking time off and not being in the shop and not working. So
oh hell no. Yeah, exactly.
It's great. So many people get into like working for themselves and like having the side hustles and things like that, but because it should give you more flexibility, but really you're just committing yourself, instead of one 40-hour a week job, you're committing yourself to one or two 120-hour-a-week jobs.
Yes,
sort of
no
thing.
question about it.
You do what you love. You work every day.
Yeah, but like it was like a physical reaction that when he said take June off, I'm like, oh God, no.
No, you're exactly right. And you can't do it. And, maybe if I were a better planner, but so anyway, what I wound up doing is, we've got orders. I just caught up last week, and I've got 3 custom orders that desperately need to get out the door, but that's a whole other topic. Custom orders. This is the time of year where I'll actually break down and take
like Josh the orders. Dad. Am I right?
No, he's going to be easy. But no, during the year, you have people who want to just go absolutely crazy. They want to know about the secret menu. And I'm like, now go easy. There's a secret menu. I'm going to tell you how to find the secret menu, but you can't go crazy with the secret menu. This time of year, go crazy with the secret menu. We can do whatever you want. But in December, don't ask me for secret menu. But like right now,
by the way, by secret menu, you mean like maybe if it's the right time of the year, we can send you the tools we want you to custom mold for us.
Secret menu means that you get your apron, but the pockets are just full to the brim of sauce.
Or they're like a cheap suit where it's just a fake pocket.
He'll make it a real pocket.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. No, if I told you what the secret menu was, then it wouldn't be very secret. But yeah, you're drilling down the right hole.
We'll talk after.
But yeah, the idea is that this time of year I get a little bit, not crazy, but somebody great, for instance, is guy wanted a little holder for his marking knife on the side of the pocket. So I've had time. Now, when you have something custom like that, this is kind of an interesting thread. So I'll take a minute. Is, people are like, well, I paid you an extra $50 for this, and rarely, every once in a while, somebody gives me a little bit of heat in terms of timing. But here's why: is you charge them an extra $50 for the little marking knife holder. Well, $50, yeah, I mean, if I could knock it out in 30 minutes, maybe that would be worth it. But I literally have to take like half a day to design around whatever custom marking knife it is. I can't just be like, oh, well, we would just throw the custom marking knife holster on the apron, because we don't do that every single day. And even if we did it 10 times a year, you still had to put, it's like, you're staring at an Excel spreadsheet and you're really making some great headway on this Excel spreadsheet in corporate, not here. We don't use Excel spreadsheets. We don't have time for no
We use
stinking
Google Sheets.
we don't have no time for no stinking spreadsheets. And but imagine like you're sitting in your office and you're really wrapped up in this project, and then somebody comes in, they're like, you got to go to the meeting. You're like, bullshit. Like, I don't have time for this. My brain is in this, but now I got to take my brain out of that and go focus on that for a while. So you just lose all of your steam. And it's great because you come up with new ideas and new products and new offerings. But that little simple knife holder becomes literally a half-day project. Somebody wanted a holster for a Starrett Square a few weeks ago, and I charged him an extra $50 for it. I think I spent the better part of 2 days like wet molding and coming up with the design just so that it would be just right. Because I mean, I could make a crappy little pocket to put your Starrett Square in, but that doesn't fit with the vibe of these aprons, right? And I love these aprons so much. And I want every single one of them to go out looking as good as it possibly could. So I'm not going to throw a crappy $50 pocket on there. I'm going to throw, a 2 days worth of pocket on there because it's going to look right.
It's almost like the $50 upcharge it's not paying for the custom work. It's literally just paying for the time slot in your brain for the supercomputer to process the equations.
Something like that.
Are you telling me
still totally not worth it?
Are you telling me that it would take you quite a bit of time to design a sword scabbard?
Yeah.
Oh no, I designed that in the time that we've been on this podcast. The sword scabbard for
in his head for years.
The wood turning, the turning
for
chisel.
my 13th century katana. I got at a flea market in Cleveland, Ohio.
That's not a half hour. That is not a half hour project, but we can get it done.
Since it's June and it's the slow month, we can secret order the scabbard, the mayo jar holder, and the PwnCNC water-cooled spindle holster.
Pocket.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, Cowdog has been asking me for 4 years to design him like a special vest that will hold chisels like John Wick, and I really want to do it. And I have been thinking about it for 4 years, but I mean, I just haven't quite wrapped my head around it. But to make that vest, which I know that I would sell, I wouldn't even, because I'm not going to charge Chris Cowdog for this freaking vest. I want him to have it because he's my friend. But like, I would work for a week on that thing and basically just do it for free. And you can't get paid enough to compensate for the time to design something that's so completely far afield as bad as you want. So something like that just keeps going to the back burner. Now, don't get me wrong, some of this custom stuff. So I'm sitting here talking about that marking knife holder. So I like the result of that so much that I am going to order a die so that I can offer that as part of the main line. Because I really liked it a lot. So sometimes when I charge somebody $50, it's more like that $50 is a placeholder to see whether, okay, is this going to be worth?
It's a prototype.
It's a prototype.
Something that could potentially be a permanent thing.
Exactly. And so anyway, the custom stuff can really produce some cool stuff. So another real quick one was like, people want a D-ring under their pocket for a dust remote. Well, I did it enough times and finally was just like, well, screw it. Let's just make this part of the design. And so I already ordered a die. I've got so many new products that I want to put out there. But as a small company, you only have so much voice, right? Like, how many times can I post on Instagram and keep people's attention? And I only have so many people following me on Instagram to the point where you're going to wear them pretty thin. Or you're going to give them so many things to think about that their brain shuts down and they don't want to order anything at all. So it's this, you got to strike this balance of, okay, I want to show you all these new products that we've been cooking up during the slow period, but it's the middle of summer and I don't want to shut down your decision making. So I'm going to kind of I'm going to space them out a little bit over the course of the rest of the year. So anyway, it's all, you kind of got to learn all of that and, direct traffic. So check out, you're getting it done.
Check out D-ring on under D-pocket on D-apron. I'm sorry, that was awful, but I had to get that out of my brain.
Wow. Well,
the dash is pronounced.
The dash is
you pronounce the dash.
Braden, I would have paid you $50 to keep that in your brain. Just saying.
Actually, why don't we then jump into questions? Because we have one from Thomas that's kind of on the subject of custom designs. So why don't we just jump? I guess we still have this same audio.
Go, Black Betty, ram.
We still don't have a questions thing, but first question is
questions
from Thomas from the mythical land of Europe.
Hey, I finally remember that it was podcast night, and I guess you'll have to endure my questions, and I got a bunch. So, Michael, how many aprons can you make with one cow? Can you make an apron from something cool, like, I don't know, wolf hide, bear hide, or maybe whale hide? And finally...
Now I understood what he said.
When I found the Turner apron you make, I was really impressed. Like, it looks so much better than my Amazon apron I got when I started. The worst thing is that it has deep pockets that fills crazy fast with shavings and dust. My only question is, could you make a Turner apron with a sword like a scabbard for a ball gouge? First, it will look awesome, and second, well, it will really look cool, right? Okay, bye.
So to translate for anyone that doesn't speak Toma, basically he's calling us, Mike can do a custom apron with a scabbard, which is I had to explain to Dan, a holster for a sword, but in this
I knew that. I brought that up like 5 minutes ago. What are you talking about?
You told us what a scabbard was. Nobody else even knew what a scabbard was.
Knew what it was except Dan.
Nope, only Dan.
It was one of those new words like yeet and bussin'.
Yeah, bussin'.
Nobody knew. Nobody knew.
Because
No cap.
he's got a very fancy Amazon apron. It doesn't even have a brand. It's just from Amazon, and it's just one step above Temu. And he's got these big pockets that fill with shavings. So he actually had a couple questions. How many aprons first? How many aprons can you make out of one cow hide?
So that's a fantastic question by itself. So each hide is vastly different from the next hide.
Are you saying every cow is different?
Yes.
I always thought they were the
very
same.
much. No, very much saying that.
None of your aprons have spots.
And then especially a bison hide versus a cow hide. So if you think about it in terms of square feet, like one of our regular cow hides, it's a side, right? So it's split down hooves? the middle. What's that?
Isn't it square hooves in that case?
Yes. I see what you did there. So with a regular side, if it's three, let's say, I think grand total, we have 16 different sizes of apron. It's probably more, 20 something if you really count all of them. But so we have all these various size aprons. Our number one bestseller is the 30-inch size 30 apron. I can generally get 2, maybe 3 size 30 aprons out of a side, right? So 2 sides, just double that up. But somebody orders a size 40, I can maybe get one of those out of a side. And on a bison hide, I probably got to go through 20 hides before I find one big enough to get a 40-inch apron out, because there's so many scars and blemishes and cuts and everything else. I could do a full deep dive into why there are so many cuts on a cowhide or a bison hide.
Bison fight clubs.
No, it's it's actually the slaughterhouses, because leather is a byproduct. All leather is a byproduct of the meat industry. So when a cow or a bison goes into the slaughterhouse, all they care about is getting the meat underneath. The hides are meaningless to that guy. Imagine, Jose with a couple of samurai swords and just
pulling them out of his scabbards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pulling them out of his scabbards and literally making quick work out of that cow or bison. And they don't care about the hide. It means nothing to them, because what's going to happen is they're going to slice and dice that thing. Hide's going to fall to the ground. They're going to push that into a gigantic retaining whatever,
Just the meat grinder.
The hide.
No. They don't. They put it into, let's just say, the back of a truck, and then it goes to another plant where the hair and the flesh is removed, so that it turns it into a hide.
I'm having a hard time getting past what that truck must smell like.
Can you imagine the nightmare of like that truck getting pulled over for speeding or something, and they like roll down the window or like open up the doors, and it's just like full to the brim of skin?
Yeah,
that nightmare truck.
Everything I hear is that the worst place on the planet is a bluing plant, which is where they put all of these things into these gigantic vats of liquids that removes the hair and the fat, the flesh. Like,
sounds
just
lovely.
The worst soup ever.
Amazingly awful. Okay, last fun fact. And we're talking about chrome tan leather here, because most of our aprons, because they're so soft and supple, like up top, this is veg tan, so this is stiffer, and we use that for durability of the main pockets and certain other elements. Oh, well, yeah. And eventually it breaks in. You put a little bit of oil in that thing, and you put your stuff in it, and it forms to what you're using. But this piece of leather, this piece of bison, was blue. It was the color of the sky. Right? Which kind of blows everybody's mind. I don't have an easy piece here, but most of the leather that you see anywhere, especially if it's chrome tan, starts out the color of the sky. Not pink, not flesh colored, because of the chemical, the chrome.
Well, how do they get the color back?
So then it goes to the tannery, our tannery that we use in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they add in the dyes and the oils and the waxes and all of that stuff, and they literally put it in like gigantic washing machine type thing, and it tumbles it around for days, and all of that stuff penetrates, and then you get this. And actually, this comes to us lighter than this, and then we hand dye it so that it gets kind of a lighter in the middle and then darker around the outside, so it almost looks like pre-patinaed. So I do that to every single one of them. Starts out a lot lighter.
What about other hides? Are you like, because you said bison and cow, but like, because so he mentions, he's like, do you ever do cool hides? I mean, bison's
he said a wolf, a whale,
hide, or
bear
hide, or whale hide. Like, have you ever worked with any other?
I would love a whale hide apron.
Horse hide.
I just want to be on that list.
Snake skin.
Zebra baby.
So one of our best sellers, or if not best sellers, they're very expensive, but we've made a couple of full gator aprons, like top to bottom, full blown. There's a company down in Florida, TNT Woodworking, TNT Industries.
No, okay.
Of course. Gator needs his gap.
We struck a deal, and he gave me all of these gator hides, and I made him full top to bottom. And I mean, these are the most these things are, if I dare say so myself, pure art. I mean, they are the most gorgeous thing that has ever left the shop. But it was pure gator from top to bottom, and it was amazing to look at. We've only made a handful of those. Those would probably cost $2,000-3,000 a piece, just for an apron. But what we do a lot of is we'll take some gator, and we'll put this main patch up here on the pocket. We'll make that out of gator because it just pops real nice on the bison.
Some and gator accents.
Exactly.
Gator ain't never been about that.
We do a gator. I know what you're talking about. I see what you're doing. I see you. That's right, Will Ferrell. Thank you. But no, I actually, I make stuff out of leather. I ain't making nothing out of a horse, dude. Horses are way too freaking nice. A lot of people make stuff out of a horse, and I am sure that if this makes it to the final podcast, it will piss some people off and get some comments. I am not making something out of a horse. I am surrounded by horses out here on this farm. I'm also surrounded by some cows, but it's kind of like, what was the pig's name on Green Acres? He'd have to have an awful good personality.
I like
Otherwise,
how
he's gonna
Michael's
taste like pumpkin pie.
I like how Michael's like hot take that's gonna get is I don't want to make things out of horses. Like,
oh, I shit you
the
not.
least controversial thing ever.
Yeah.
Oh no, but
it's not that
believe
controversial.
me, I'm just saying that the fact that I make stuff, that I make so many leather goods out of all this other stuff, but I draw the line at horse. There are a lot of people, like, it's some of the most expensive stuff you could buy is made out of horse. And I'm just saying, I ain't making shit out of a horse.
It's a weird thing to make things out of. I didn't even realize that was an industry.
Can you
it's huge.
What adhesive do you use? Never mind.
Yeah. No, it's called, actually the identifier is called shell cordovan. So if you ever see the word
comes from a turtle.
Shell,
yeah, what's the street name?
Street name is shell cordovan. That is translated directly to freaking horse. Okay.
Freaking horse.
Yeah, that's it. Horse.
It's one of those things where you have to like rearrange. It's one of the things where you have to rearrange the letters. Freaking horse.
And it's a anagram. No, I'm just not into exotics. Like, I'm not making stuff out of snakes and emus and stuff like that.
Big in the boot industry.
It might be.
I have an idea.
That's just not what I'm doing.
Wait. Dan's ideas.
I have an idea. It's not exotic because it's a domestic animal.
A dog.
But this might actually be a hot
earmuffs,
take
buddy. Earmuffs.
No. I have a dog. I like dogs. Kittens.
I like dogs too. I like
Oh my god.
Damn, Dan.
See, that's the idea where
That's
we might get some comments and we might have to actually
did you
cut
just
this
say make
part
it out of a cat? What did you say?
No. He specifically said
kittens.
Yep.
Like,
kittens.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like cute kittens? Like real cute?
Like not baby, like a veal. The veal of
the
veal of leather.
Oh my god, Dan, what a monster.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
that's a hot take. That's a hot take.
That is almost as hot as cilantro, Dan. I want to redirect the last question. So obviously you can customize the apron, and he asks a semi-silly question of a scabbard for the turning tool. But like, what's your line? Like, are you willing to kind of make something really crazy if it's a cool idea?
Oh hell yeah! We've made one of the. I mean, it's certainly not crazy, but we designed. When I say we, I mean there's a mouse in my pocket that like a ping pong net, for instance. Designed a really badass ping pong net for this $20,000 ping pong table.
Wait, wasn't that a YouTube video, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, it was probably online or somewhere. But anyway, made a leather ping pong net, but did it in a way so that it doesn't sag over time. And so something like that, hell yeah, it's fun. Like, I'm not going to reupholster your car. I'm not going to make you boots. Like, people ask me all the time, like, oh, can you make me a pair of gator boots? No idea whatsoever. Because going back to when I started this whole thing, like, I wasn't looking to get into tooling leather and, like the micro world of, hand stitching and mirror finishes and things like that. That's not what we do. We overbuild things for a market that is largely not used to buying really, really nice leather goods. So me putting a mirror finish on all this stuff would be totally lost on anybody. And I don't want to do that anyway. But
you got to sand it to 180 anyways.
But I'm not kidding. I mean, they're sanding these things to 1,000 grit so that they have a literal mirror finish on their wallet. But they're selling that wallet for $300, whereas I sell a $85 wallet that will last you the rest of your freaking life, and it's awesome. And for the people that we serve, that's what they want. And even $85 for a wallet to them is like, or a better example is a belt. Like, our belts generally cost $95, $100. That belt will last you for the rest of your life. But most of the people that we're selling to, it's a bit of a hard sale because they're used to buying the $20 version at Walmart. So you got to convince them, why do you want a belt that's going to last you for the next 30 years? Because you're going to feel like a badass every time you put it on. That's why.
I was going to say, I got the 3-for-1 special from Amazon on nylon belts, and now I just feel inadequate.
Look at this loser. Mine's reversible.
Pro tip, when you buy a belt from Michael, buy one that's bigger that you can grow into.
No, you just make your own holes.
That's why you buy a bigger one, so that you could make your own holes backwards.
So you don't have to like tight bond on an additional strip of like bonus leather.
I remember helping my dad like he would like get like an awl like hot. It was just a screwdriver that was sharpened, something like a prison shank to like burn a new hole in the belt. I think he lost a bunch of weight when I was young. So I just remember that's a weird memory for me, but I remember burning holes in leather belts.
1/4-inch drill bit. All you need is a 1/4-inch drill bit. It's so easy.
You get it hot.
That sounds a lot easier than burning with a prison shank Polish.
Yeah, that's
owl.
right.
I'm sorry. I grew up in communist Poland. Okay.
Yeah,
You didn't have drill bits.
our kids aren't going to remember us specifically drilling a 1/4-inch hole in something, but they might remember, as Pete is showing us, they might remember the scalding white hot prison shank.
Yes.
Listen,
The murder weapon.
It's not trauma if you're smiling. Okay. All right, but let's stay focused because we have a bunch of questions. Some of them for Michael, some of them are.
But to finish up that question from Tama is that the scabbards. I've already got the idea cooked up in my head. Like I love that idea of making some scabbards and putting it on a belt, almost like a tool belt. I think it's a great idea. I got to figure it out. I don't think that we're gonna, I'm not gonna put my kids through college on it. But it could be cool.
I don't know. I've seen those turning guys. They get real weird. You might be able to put a kid through college with turning stuff.
Yeah. By the way, I meant to do a joke earlier. I just figured I'd squeeze it in, shoehorn it at the end. When you talked about getting pulled over with leather, I said you can run, but you can't hide. Yeah. Sorry, I meant to work that in earlier.
That's good. That was good. Good.
I thought you guys would enjoy that.
I didn't even catch it.
I'm just so
everyone that's
proud.
groaning right now.
I'm so proud of you, Pete. Like you're coming into your dad era. It's so.
I've been
so
training
wonderful
for
to
this.
see.
He's been doing this for years.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I just love it so much.
All right, let's jump into this next question from speaking of dads, Josh the dad, one from the Big IG.
Yashi the Poppy.
Well, that sounds familiar. Hey guys, it's Josh the dad. Yeah, Josh the dad, one of the Big IG, coming at you with this week's questions, ramblings, words of nonsense, and all the like, Hey, I'm doing this solo because I couldn't find Bill today, and that's okay because that just saves you guys the headache. So I have actually 2 questions, and I'm not sure all of you can answer this, but I'm pretty sure one of you can. I get to thinking, because this is the way my brain works. I'm not looking to get into it. I'm just curious. In the art of leather crafting, if you were to really dive in and get after it and learn the skills and hone your craft, where does that fall in the spectrum financially of the maker community? Like woodworking, leather, metal, where does that fall? Like how much would one expect to invest in something like that? And then
I'm actually going to pause it here because this is going to be a whole thing. It's like, that's a great question by Josh the dad. Like, Michael, where does leatherworking fit into, like, do you need a whole shop with a table saw plane or whatever? Or like, can you start with just a sewing machine?
You need a leather planer? Is that a thing?
No, you
thing?
need almost nothing. I'm not kidding. You need almost nothing. And a great example when I first heard this question, Chris Cunningham, Cunningham Woodworks. I don't know that you guys know him or not.
Never heard of him.
Chris.
Very famous. Never heard of him.
Fantastic dude. You should know him. Anyway, fantastic dude. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he started buying some. We do these big remnant sales a couple times a year. And so he was, I send him some free stuff too, but he was buying remnant leather from us. And he just started making leather goods. And he texted me over the last couple of days. He's like, hey, can I start making some stuff for you? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I keep seeing some of the stuff he's putting out. And it's just like, damn, brother, that's freaking awesome. And you know what he's using? He's got probably a box cutter, nothing fancy whatsoever, a straight edge, And yeah, I mean, okay, you could splurge and buy a self-healing mat, but you don't have to have it. You don't have to have, I mean, literally the most basic stuff. But then you get leather punches and you could use a hammer or a mallet or whatever you got. But so, I mean, I'm trying to think of things that would be cheaper than leather goods. And drawing, black and white drawing, black and white drawing on a piece of paper with an ink pen might be cheaper than leather good or, you know, stuff. But leatherworking is so accessible. You know, you get some scrap leather, you get a set of hole punches, which again are not that much. You can get a $20 set from Weaver, and a hammer and some thread, and that is it. You don't need a sewing machine. You don't need fancy glue, except for if you want to light it on fire, which makes things a lot more fun. But you know, you don't need a whole lot of stuff. Again, accessibility. It is extraordinarily accessible, and Chris is a perfect testament to that.
Yeah, so I have my buddy Trevor. He's recently gotten to leatherworking, and I introduced you to him at Workbench Con, and yeah, he's doing it all out of his apartment. So,
oh yeah, I mean, most of these guys, like even some of the big accounts, they're doing this in practically a closet in an apartment. I mean, you do not need a lot of space. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment. I will say we have invested over these 8 or 9 years. I have bought a bunch of big equipment, and there's a reason for that. Is that allows us to, with very, very few people, switch over what we're doing in no time flat. And so we can hit a lot of production without a lot of people because we have the machinery to do it. You know, so belts, we can crank belts out, you know, not easy. There's a lot of steps in it, but, you know, the once you get to that level of, you know, supporting a family and putting kids through college, then, you know, you figure out the right investments to make and the right dies to buy and things like that. But to get started, you absolutely do not need any of that.
Michael,
so basically,
go ahead.
So basically, it depends on the volume that you're doing. I mean, if you're just doing one-off things here and there.
Yes, correct.
Well, let's finish off Josh's question, and I think he asked kind of same thing along the same lines here.
The other question is, out of all the tools needed, what would be the basic set that someone would need to get to start, whether it be a hobby or whether they want to start making little things?
Yep. Again, great question, and had that exact.
That's what I'm just curious about because.
Oh, sorry, I walked over it.
Hey guys, do me a favor. Work hard. Do your best. Find some time to have a little fun. I'm out.
Sorry, I thought that was Braden reading that out. My bad.
They sound the same. But yeah, so what's your, like, I want to get into leatherworking and put you out of business. What do I need?
So the exact conversation I had with Chris Cunningham earlier today before any of this stuff came up was you need a mallet, you need a set of pricking irons, which are basically the punches. You need thread, you need some scrap leather, and that is all you need. That is all that is required, and something to cut with.
Yeah, insert joke here. Just, you guys know there's
pricking irons.
Pricking irons. There's something there. Somebody work with something.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's kind of it's really interesting to me that you're talking about how low the barrier to entry is with leatherworking, because in my mind it's really high. Like wood, there's wood all over the place, and you know, you get some tools and you can cut it and circular saw and things like that. But in my mind, leather's foreign to me, so I think that you've got to have all these dyes and all these templates and leather. I have no concept of what a hide costs, so I just assume that it's basically like buying alligator skin sort of thing. So yeah, it's really interesting to me that you're saying that the barrier is really, really low,
extraordinarily low, and the investment. I mean, you could spend, and I've never really thought about this because I've never bought it like this, but I'd say for $50 you'd be well on your way. And if you went to Joann Fabrics, use a 40% off coupon, $30. I mean, it would be amazing how much you could get done with a very small amount of money. You just got to get some scrap leather.
So I know that you do.
And I'm not talking about a full apron. I'm talking about, a small starter wallet, a small starter, coin purse, keychain, stuff like that. I'm not talking about the big stuff, but it's like with woodworking. Are you going to build, some gigantic monstrosity first, or are you going to figure out how to do some easy stuff first?
I gotta say, one of the best places to dip your toes a little bit, if you go to Maker Camp, I think last year Ethan was doing a class.
Carter.
Yeah, Ethan Carter was doing a class on leatherworking.
Oh, he's great.
I was actually bummed. That class sold out. Not sold out. It sat out because people have to just sit down to get their spot. People sat 2 hours ahead of the class to do it. I wanted to do a little wallet so bad, and they just filled up that class, every single slot so quickly. So you can learn leatherworking at Maker Camp, or you can at least even watch while people are working on it. And from what I heard, he did a really good job too. So it's a nice place to dip your toes a little bit, get a feel for it.
Yeah.
And hey, for tax purposes, we're all small business owners, so we have no money when we file our taxes. So we only need little wallets. We don't need big wallets.
That's right.
Exactly.
That's true.
But a good example of all of this is especially in our market, right? The maker market. When I first started this, we produced all sorts of extra scrap leather, and you can't this. Going back to this bison hide right here that this Jory is made out of, this would not be ideal to make a wallet. This might not even be ideal to make a purse out of because it's super soft, right? But it's great for an apron. But I have a tremendous amount of scrap of this, and I have a tremendous amount of scrap of certain other leathers. And so 8 or 9 years ago, we had no way to sell this stuff. So I just kind of started hoarding it in boxes and bags. And a couple of years ago, we started selling it in a remnant sale a couple times a year. And it's always available at full price, but we just run it on sale. And I'm not kidding you, we probably sold 40 grand worth of scrap leather over the last 3 years. We just, as we go, we pack it into 10-pound boxes, and this maker crowd just freaking eats it up because they want to know how to make one more thing. And Braden, that's where your and my conversation was the last time, which was creating templates so that we could give people templates of some of the basic stuff that we make so that then they could reproduce, right? And produce their own.
Well, heck, from what I'm hearing, I don't even have to create anything anymore. I just need to wait for your remnant sale and then also use my Joanne Fabrics 40% off coupon on the remnant sale and then just go resell it on eBay.
At that point, I'm making money by spending money.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yes.
So
what I took away from that is I need to quit giving scraps to Braden and Nick and start selling them as remnants.
I've been telling you to sell all your scraps for 2 years, Dan. One day. But no, Michael says it. Michael says it. Oh, that's a great idea.
Michael's smart.
I will say we try very much to, that funnel is really big. So the funnel is at the top of the funnel. It's a gigantic hide, right? And so I do my best to not waste any of that. But by the time it gets to the bottom of the funnel, it has to be a really small piece for me not to be able to put it in a remnant box or, do something with it. Very, very little goes in the trash. We either make side gear, small goods out of it, or we put it in the remnant boxes.
So do you have a leather equivalent of a pen turning blank in leather?
Good question. Like a project sheet.
No, we don't have any projects, but that's something that I would like to do because, again, you see all these people that are buying all of these remnants and they need something to make. But I mean, it's a Google search, the Google or Gajoogle, whatever that was.
Gazoogle.
Well, so just to give some concept or some context, because I still have no idea what leather costs or what we're talking about in scale. And Michael, I don't want you giving away your prices and your things like that. I Google searched bison hide just to see where you can buy it from. And so Montana Leather Company that was the first one that pulled up. You can get a full side of Cognac, Apache, Bison, $155, and that's about 23 square feet ish.
That seems really
5
low.
to 6 ounce thick and soft to medium in temper.
Considering the leather jacket I bought in 1996 was $500.
That just appreciates, Dan. That's an investment.
Yeah.
Just my idea of like how big a bison is, like half a bison. This thing is going to cover my house, which is probably
bison
wrong,
is much smaller than a cow. Just so you know,
Bison is
in my head, bison greater than cow.
Nope. Yeah, bison
totally
are
not.
Basically the moose of cows.
Nope, not even close. Quite the opposite.
They're like, are they?
So
we're gonna find out they're like dog sized.
A cow would be, let's say, a cow could regularly be, 28 square feet. Let's just say my average cow hides are 28 square feet. Average bison hide is probably 20 square feet.
Huh. Interesting. So
Isn't that crazy?
bison is basically the walnut of leather, where like you can, it's really nice, but like there's gonna be some knots in it. You don't have much workable material out of it.
Oh no, that's a great way to put it, because I have to be very, very careful. Early days, I learned that you can't put scars or brands or big marks on an apron, because as cool as it might look from an artistic standpoint, that customer bought what they saw on the website, and what they saw on the website was clean, and they don't want, unless you clear it with them first. And for instance, I texted a customer a couple of months ago and I was like, hey, this panel that I have that I think would look freaking awesome has a big scar over here to the side. Would it be cool to use that one? And I said, but if you're not cool with that, I will start over from scratch and I'll use a fresh one. It'll be totally clean. And you could tell he kind of hemmed and hawed. You could kind of see the wheels turning in the background. And he was like, yeah, I guess I'd really like it just to be clean. Like I just want the clean one, no scars. Which,
Howard.
I mean, that's what they want. But I've only had 1 or 2 return, because I learned, okay, I'm not going to take the artistic license of putting a freaking cattle brand right in the middle of somebody's apron, because that's just not their jam. That to them is a slight bridge too far. So
Dan and I both have gotten this at some point where there's sapwood on some walnut piece, and they're like, the dye didn't penetrate, or your stain is inconsistent.
Or if the grain isn't perfectly straight,
it's
a little swirly, they're like, but this isn't.
Come on, dude, it's not stain, it's the wood.
But particularly with the bison hides, because the bisons are wild animals. And so they'll be roaming the plains and they'll hit, old barbed wire, or, they'll get attacked by insects or whatever. So there are all sorts of scars and everything else on these bison. And it's so that my yield on a cowhide, fantastic. I could possibly get as many as 3 apron panels out of a cowhide. Out of a bison hide, I'm lucky to get 2. If I can get 1, I'm usually happy. So there's a lot more excess on the bison, because they're just, and you pay for higher grades, but I'm paying for the highest grade.
And is bison more expensive than cow?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. So yeah, it is literally walnut. You're describing walnut.
No, that's it. Exactly.
Yeah, he's paying for the grade, so he's paying for college educated bison.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the bison is expensive, and there are lots of knots and sapwood and stuff like that in them that you got to work around, and that's tough. But and then I hand dye all the bison, so that adds time and effort.
Damn, so much work. But I mean,
it's kind of crazy. Like
so funny.
Those 1 minute videos,
low cost of entry, but then there's like all this extra work that to just prep the material and like get it just right.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And it's labor of love.
Nothing worth doing is easy come, easy go. Like it takes work, right?
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. All right,
and then when I'll put one of these on Marvin, or like look at it when it's Marvin is my mannequin behind me over here. But like when yep, that's him. But when I put it on there and I'll shoot the video, I'm like, damn, that looks good. and you feel this pride of being that small business owner who just made magic, and that feels freaking right, and that makes it all worth it.
Marvin's got no arms and no head, but damn, son, I made you look good.
Mhm.
Everyone just looks better in leather. That's how Dan locked down Kayla with that jacket, and he had
And the full leather pants.
Well, yeah,
It was the
Yeah,
leather
that was it.
pants.
they
but
were assless chaps, so they
yeah.
were
Well, you
thank you.
said full leather pants. You mean minus the ass?
the minus the ass.
Yes.
Well, isn't this like the debate? Like, isn't by saying assless chaps, isn't that essentially like saying ATM machine? Like, it's chaps by just definition are assless.
Yeah, awppodcast@gmail.com or awppodcast.com. We definitely didn't own that at some point.
Or still do.
Still, oh my god. All right. Speaking of, I don't know, assless chaps, Randy from Very Expensive Connecticut. Sorry, Randy.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's Randy from the formerly expensive Connecticut. Still expensive, but now we are the pizza capital of the U.S. Ha! Take that, New York. Dan, I think a Casey's would do quite well here, but I digress. I have a strange request from a customer for a cutting board I'm making now. They want me to soak it in oil, and then they want me to cut it in half, take pictures of it to show them how deep the penetration of oil goes, and then glue it back together. I thought that was rather odd. So now I want to know, what is your guys' strangest request you've had from a customer, and how do I respond to this person who wants me to do that? Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Oh, Randy, that's such a good question. I can't think of one. I'll be quick because I can't think of a weird, crazy request, because I think a lot of them came early on when I was just happy to get any work, and I just said yes to everything like a dummy. So I don't have like a request, but what you need to do, so before you cut the board, you got to cut that customer out. That's it. That's my 2 cents on it. Is if someone asked me to do that, I'd be like, that's ridiculous. If you don't trust my work, we're not working together. I'm sorry. Goodbye. But Dan, I would love to hear what you have to say.
I don't necessarily read that as the customer not trusting him. I think they just kind of want to know, how much oil's in the board and like how much they're going to have to oil it in the future.
Cutting board instructions for a reason. Like, you don't need to know.
I think it's a valid question. I really do.
I think I have an easier solution. Yeah, can I answer? Even though I don't
please
get a leather
Michael.
cutting board.
Take a piece of scrap wood, and it doesn't have to be the finished cutting board. Take a piece of scrap wood, and you could tell the customer, I like Pete. I think you're exactly right. Like, that ain't the kind of customer you want, but you can take a piece of scrap wood and soak that thing in whatever oil you want, and then a couple days later cut it in half and be like, this is how much oil is going to penetrate into that wood.
I was so mad I didn't even think straight like that.
Well, it really depends on what kind of cutting board we're talking about here. If it's an edge grain, a face grain, or an end grain. If they ordered an end grain board, you can't very well use a scrap piece of wood for that.
You got some scrap. Or you charge them double. I'm going to have to build this cutting board twice.
There's the answer right there. You charge them double. And I have a pretty creative solution, actually, that just popped in my head. And I had to draw a picture of it, because I don't know how to explain this via audio recording, but I'll try. I thought about, because we heard this question in the pre-show and we got to think about it, and I've been thinking about this one for some reason. I would, if I'm making this cutting board for a client and I got full artistic control, obviously, I would glue everything up in like 45-degree angles, kind of like this. And then I would cut it right in the middle at a 90-degree angle. And then I would flip it and glue it back together. That is really hard to explain. But that way, not only would you get the look of the cutting board cut in half, but you could glue it back together in such a way that it would be a creative design and it would kind of go back together seamlessly. I really can't, unless you're watching this video, you have to watch this video to see my little diagram. So,
Dan, where can they watch the video?
On youtube.com/anotherwoodshop podcast.
Wow, that was easy.
Yeah.
That was so easy. I should subscribe. Yeah. All right.
As far as the strangest request I've ever had, I think it was that it's been several years now, but you guys, Pete, you probably remember when I made that quote unquote Tetris shelf.
Oh God, yes.
Yeah. That client actually, so I gave them a cutting board and they really liked the design of the cutting board. They were like, can you make a whole shelf out of this design? And I was like, well, yeah,
Look how flat this cutting board is. Can you make a shelf this flat?
Yeah, and I did. I made a giant Tetris like shelf out of it. I mean, this shelf or bookcase or whatever the heck you want to call it was like 7 feet tall by 9 feet wide.
That was in your Dan Hates Life era. Like every project you took on was like,
but I'll tell you what,
and it was the worst.
That project, the end result was really cool.
Awesome.
Really cool.
Wait,
but yeah, that was a strange request. I was like,
all your large projects looked awesome. Like the
I've never had that
built for 2 years and other things, like they all look good.
Braden, what you got?
I'm like Pete. I can't think of any like really weird requests because I'm just always so happy to do stuff, and now I just don't ever get past the like ground floor red flags. But I wouldn't go so far as like I didn't get mad at this question. My first thought was, I don't know if you could do that because I would be worried about the structural integrity of a cutting board that you cut in half, fill with oil, and then try and glue back together.
Yes.
Like the
glue wouldn't adhere because of the
100%.
oil.
100%.
Yeah. So I don't think you could do that. At least not to the point where like I would feel comfortable being like, all right, here you go. This is going to last as long as I think it should. But my first thought was exactly what Michael said was get a scrap piece or, cut off a strip or something like that, drop it in, because I've wondered a lot about like, hey, if I leave this in for a day in the oil, how much penetration is it going to get? So it could very well be somebody that's interested in what we do and how we do it, wanting to know. So I would absolutely ask the customer, because that's going to tell you for sure when they say, oh, I was just interested. You could, hey, let me help teach you. Or when they're like, well, I don't trust that you're going to oil it. Cool, thank you. Here's your money back. I'm not the right fit for you. Please check out Timu.com.
I've got one more idea.
Go.
And that is, why not make a scrap or mock-up fake cutting board, of whatever style it needs to be, and turn it into a value add. So as a small business, it would be, you're showing like, this is how deep the oil penetrates into my cutting boards. Like I follow this process and this is what you're actually getting. And so it's not the cutting board that you're actually going to sell to that customer, but, make a cutting board and cut it in half after you've oiled it so that you can show that to every customer, by way of pictures or video.
Yeah, make content out of it. Yeah.
It might be kind of cool to like, you guys know, like the 5-minute craft videos on every social media. Get a piece of acrylic and like.
I'm glad that era is done, by the way. Like
it's not.
Oh, it's never done.
Not as much as
never
it
done.
It used to be much worse.
I'm about to go watch some videos and make myself a new pair of flip flops out of a soda can and 3 Phillips head screwdrivers.
Oh, you guys haven't seen my house. We live in a tree house made of bamboo, and we have a really nice pool out front that's terracotta.
But I wonder if you could like affix a piece of acrylic onto like a cut, like a board. What's the word I'm looking for? A cross section of a board, and then drop that in so you could like see the oil like penetrate in. Which I guess you could do exactly that by just cutting it in half afterwards, but it'd be cool.
I see what you're saying.
I just had a thought of like, I think I'm thinking about. I saw red.
You just immediately were filled with rage.
I was immediately a customer. I was like, how dare you like question how my finish is? It's like saying like, hey, I know you're gonna finish this desk with Odie's oil, but I need this. I need to see. Yeah, I know Dan's getting all hot now. Let's see, he's seeing red behind him. Like, I need to see a cross section of this desk before I pay for it. Like, that's a ridiculous thing to ask. Like, you don't ask a painter, but like, I need to see a cross section of this cabinet you're gonna paint for me. Here's the thing. I'm not finishing any cutting board with oil these days. I'm using hard wax oils, like hard waxes, which means they won't penetrate as far, but they create a film. So it's not like it's soaking all the way through the board, but it's soaking into the top layer and creating a nice hard coating on it. Like what's the teddy bear, Total Boat Wood Honey?
Oh, Wood Honey.
Sorry, I was trying to say Wood Honey. The Wood Honey, I have the walrus oil. I don't use that. I actually use the butter that they have. It's a lot thicker.
Furniture butter.
But my go-to right now is the Bee Nuba oil, or the Bee Nuba wax, and it's like it's the most perfect schmodies alternative. Like from Bumbleshoots, go check it out. The Bee Nuba wax is so good. It's nice and soft. You don't have to like really work it too hard. You work it in, leave it for an hour, buff it off. It's amazing. It's got a beautiful sheen to it. It penetrates really well, makes the wood pop. Highly recommend it. So don't go, don't think you have to soak your cutting boards in oil.
Bee Nuba. I like the way you work it.
Yeah.
No diggity.
Be a pro and use Bee Nuba. Get it?
See, that's why I finish all of my cutting boards with shellac now.
Oh, get out of here with bugs. Ugh.
Bad idea.
All right, next question.
I don't do that. Just to be clear.
Not quite a question, but this one's directed at Braden. Alex Adams.
Hey, it's Alex at Type A Furniture, and I'm asking for a friend. So if my friend was to use the code Littlebug instead of AWP when they placed an order with Surf Prep,
straight to jail.
Would that count as hate crime? Oh, just a second. Someone's at the door. Let me go get that.
FBI, open up!
Yeah, so that's what happens.
Let that be a lesson to you.
You use the wrong code. Surf Prep, AWP.
AWP.
PwnCNC, AWP.
That was a very short but very fierce beef that we had to have between Petrie and Littlebug for discount codes. So I'm glad that's over.
I would say you're going down, but it's kind of pointless because you're already down.
Ouch.
Damn. Anyways, next question. Next question's from Jared, and he wrote in, and I can't read, so here's an AI voice of Jared. Go!
Hello, AWP. I am thinking about getting my first laser, and I honestly don't know much about them, but I need it to be very budget-friendly to talk my wife into letting me get one. Would love to know if you have a recommendation or just general specifications to look for. Thanks for your time. Use code PTRE to get 10% off your Surf Prep order.
No.
No, use
we
code.
just talked about this.
And I didn't type that in, like he actually put that in an email.
The beef is over, everybody. The beef is over.
We're now on Bison.
I have an answer. You can get lasers on Temu for like dirt cheap. I don't know if they're good.
No,
I don't know if they're good.
that.
He
Don't
said he wanted a very budget friendly laser, and that is your answer.
I'd like to take this one because I've gone through these motions in a very, very short amount of time. Yes, you can get budget lasers. I'm shocked that you can buy lasers without some sort of like license, some sort of background checks, but I digress.
Watch that. You're gonna have to get a license like with drones now.
Yeah, but you can just go on Amazon and 2 days later you have a laser. The problem with the budget lasers, and this is kind of a problem that permeates like just lasers in general, is they're all kind of coming from overseas. A lot of the documentation isn't necessarily accurate in terms of power levels, and when you get into like those cheap, no name, no brand type lasers, they work fine enough, and it really depends on what you want to do. If you're looking to cut, just stop. Like, just don't go with the no name ones. Like, you're gonna just be frustrated. If you're looking to engrave, you can do that, but it just takes so much longer, and you're just kind of winging it, that the power levels are going to be what you're actually reading when you order it. So I would honestly, I'd buck up and I'd make the pitch and get one of like the name brand type lasers. Go with X tool, go with OhmTech. You know, you can get into the higher price points. But if you can get one of the entry levels from like the big names that we're seeing, Thunder, just go with that. It's going to save you a lot of hassle in terms of just being frustrated. Because like I wanted to just chuck my little laser out through the window because it was a 10 watt, and I use air quotes. When I looked at the actual power levels that are literally printed on the laser itself, it was like a 1.5 watt. It was essentially a laser pointer. So that's mine.
A laser pointer on cilantro.
That's right. It was a spicy laser pointer.
Can't even. So I will say this. So one thing you want to consider, we've had this conversation a lot about other tools as well. There's a lot of great entry level options. There's nothing in the middle that is worth you considering, and then there's phenomenal higher tier 2,000 and up options. So that's something to consider. This is another one of those, like, it's a dead zone in the center. You're not going to get an amazing $500 laser. You're just going to get a beefed up $200 laser, or you're going to get an awful version of a $2,000 laser. And I hate to say it, because I'll say, like, look at the Ortours, look at the X tools. There's a couple different ones. Like Dave just worked on with one that's like a weird, like, it folds up nicely and it kind of swings out. Like, X tool, solid. You know, they're not the best support out there, but they're solid. Ortour, highly recommend for an entry level laser, mainly because, and this is why I will tell you to not get a Temu laser. When you're getting into a machine that you don't know a lot about, you want to get into the brand that has the most support. And Ortour got in early. The community is massive. A lot of people have those lasers, and they will tell you if you have a problem, somebody already solved it. And the reason I wanted to play this question today is because, so Michael, I know you don't. I don't even know if you have a laser, but you know, when I'm thinking of, like, you're talking about leatherworking and whatever, I was just thinking about, like, why don't I just have a template instead of a knife? I can throw it into my $10,000 laser instead of a box cutter, because that's my entry level version of that of leatherworking. Can I just, like, have you ever had leather cut by a laser?
Yes, and personally, I think if you were doing it for one-offs or prototypes or things like that, it's absolutely doable. Personally, I hate the smell of it.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's horrible.
You
And
ever light a part on fire? It's like that.
Yeah.
Or hair.
Yeah, exactly. I would not do it. I don't do it here in the shop. The funny part about this whole story, about this whole conversation, is I have a $7,000 or $8,000 laser literally within arm's reach right now. It's been sitting in that spot for 2 years. I've never once turned it on. Not once. It's a Boss. It belongs to a friend of mine who's overseas, and we struck a deal for me to store it for him, you know, where I could use it whenever I wanted to. I've never once used it. But if I had one of the X tool, I think I would actually have a lot more possibility to use that.
Yep. Now, would you use it more for cutting your templates or engraving?
Templates, strictly templates.
Okay.
So I would use that for cutting acrylic templates, either that or prototypes, because then that way I could get, you know, the nice curves and, you know, be able to check things out before I sent it off for a die or before I got too far into a template. I mean, there are definitely places where it can be used, but it's not just turning on the laser. It's developing the understanding of how to draw in the right software. And, you know, I mean, the laser is the easy part. It's the software and having the understanding of, you know, drawing in that. I'm real good at Photoshop. I suck at, like, you know, any of the, let's say, CAD based drawing programs.
Dan?
I am 100% standing by my answer. It was not a joke answer. Mainly because if you buy a cheap laser off of like Temu or Wish or wherever else, right? Or Amazon for that matter. I think Amazon even has super cheap lasers. You can use that as a proof of concept. Because I'm assuming that you're coming at this like, I want to prove that I can make money with this laser. So you could use it as a proof of concept to use it in your work and prove that you can make money using it. And then Michael even brought up another good point. You could use that as like a stepping stone to learn how to use the software, which I would assume that you're going to use Lightburn. It'll help you learn Lightburn. What is that? That's different.
I apologize. I'm pulling up some laser sites, and do not go to the Ortour website if you're recording a podcast.
So yeah, it gives you a really good stepping stone just to prove that you could make it work in your flow before you make the big leap into a really expensive laser.
Fair enough. No, I do get that. But make sure verify that it works with Lightburn, because a lot of the third-party software is not good.
That's true, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, Dan's right. Timestamp. Dan is right.
Don't you hate that?
That's why I was recommending the Ortour, because like the cost of entry is $100, 100 something, under $200. So it's not. Oh,
do they have lasers that cheap? I didn't realize that.
Ortour, I think I would check the site, but it makes sounds when you go to it, so I got to double check it. But based on my understanding, Ortour has they were kind of like one of the early ones to get into it.
Oh, that's actually about the price point I was thinking of. So
yeah, there's some cheaper options.
If Ortour has a $100 laser, yeah,
$189, $219.
What's the power on some of these?
This one is it's a good laser when they list the speed but not the power. it's like they're like, this is a 10 watt /5 watt /1.6 watt.
I found my first laser right there. I found the factory it came out of. That one's.
Yeah. So I mean, like, listen, a 10 watt laser for engravings and things like that, or people underestimate the value of just having a laser engrave. Just do a line for you to cut out on a bandsaw, table saw, whatever, instead of you having, like, even if you do scroll saw stuff like we had Ashley on last week, instead of doing scroll saw work, you can laser engrave on a piece of wood and then cut with your scroll saw, bandsaw, whatever, to that line, and you have a nice marking on there. You don't have to print out a sheet of paper, glue it onto your template, and work like that. So you can just engrave your template onto it, or leather in this case.
Just a really quick pro tip on like some of the OhmTech stuff. If you go to eBay, OhmTech sells.
Oh, that's a good
on eBay. They've got a K40, which is a 40 watt CO2 desktop laser. That would be pretty cool. But a lot of their lasers, they'll accept best offers on. Go put in an offer. Like I got
your first one, right?
I got my OhmTech, my big one, like $500-600 off, just by putting in a couple of offers on Black Friday. So go. What's the worst that they say? No, and then you just buy it.
Fine, we'll do it.
There's a lot of markup in lasers, guys. Go use it to your advantage.
There is.
And if you want to get into leatherworking, you could use it for that as well. Well, I think that's it for questions, right? We got Jared, Josh, Randy, Alex, Tama.
I think that's it.
Guys, that's it.
Well, yes.
I want to say, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. This was awesome.
Good times. Anytime. Next time I will have my technology issues all settled.
That's fine. Hey, this was still great. Thank you so much for joining us, sharing all the info, how you started your business, how you're growing. If someone wants to check you out, or if they want to get a super secret menu order, where do they go? Or even a standard order? Where do you go?
Easiest way is calaveratool.com. That's where all the magic happens. You can follow along at Calaveratool on Instagram, which of course all of these people know already, because surely they're following us. But yeah, calaveratool.com. Website, I would not call it robust, but it's been serving us well for quite a while, and get anything you need. And if you really got to have the secret menu, drop me a DM.
It's like bison leather. It's not nearly as robust, but boy, it's soft and it's nice to look at.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And use code AWP for the same cost. Okay. Yep.
He'll fill all the pockets with cane sauce for you.
No, I'll do that before I leave tonight. Is use code AWP for 10% off. How about that?
What?
Ooh. That was unexpected.
I love
Easy.
it.
There we go.
Love it, love it.
I'm gonna just leave that open ended.
Braden says that is bussin'.
No cap.
No cap. So use code AWP for 10% off. That is so many percents.
Oh, it's probably not 10% off the cost though. It's 10% off the length.
It's just gonna be
I got a crop top.
about?
Yeah, I got a crop top apron. The bottom of the pockets are all cut off.
I went into a guy's shop the other day. He's bought 3 or 4 aprons, and there were 2 hanging on a nail on his wall. And when I say there were 2, one of them was cut like literally like the top 3 inches was still there, and the rest of it just completely gone. Like I'm not exactly sure what happened to the rest of it, but he had basically massacred this thing to cut it completely off right under the thing. And I think maybe he needed the leather like desperately for this project. And he had another one that a leather emergency. And then the other one he had cut right at the waistline. So instead of like our instead of like the low rider that starts at your waist and goes down, his started at the waist and came up. He had just cut it in half. It's kind of funny.
He had a crotchless shirt.
Amazing. That's right. A leather shirt.
Well, you know who else appreciates crotchless things, Dan?
Our patrons, I'll bet. They love crotchless things. Another shout out to all of our patrons. You guys are the best. If you want to join us on Patreon, you can go over to patreon.com/anotherwoodshop podcast. We would appreciate any sort of patronage you can give us. Even if you don't want to help us financially, you can always share the show with everybody you know. From Karen to Joe.
And Grandma.
I also apologize for us saying that you like crotchless things. That feels weird. I apologize.
I like all things crotchless, except for my wood, if you know what I mean.
No, because you love crotch.
I love crotch when it comes to wood.
Who do we have to explain that to recently?
Skylar Sr.
Oh, Skylar Sr. He's like, I love crotch? What's that?
This is a family company.
The middle section, it's curly.
Yes. Sometimes I wear that shirt and I forget I'm wearing it, and then people give me weird looks. Anyway.
Well, speaking of curly things, we want to give a huge shout out as well to our sponsor this week, PwnCNC. PwnCNC is a great sponsor. They make a lot of awesome stuff to bring your CNC up to the next level. Check out their site and their support on PwnCNC. That's PwnCNC.com, and upgrade your CNC today. Use code AWP for 5% off your order.
They also have a pretty active Facebook group where they always are interacting with their customers.
Yeah. And you know what? As much as we have a love-hate relationship with Facebook, the groups are sometimes pretty useful.
They can be.
They can be. Yeah. And you're right. The PwnCNC one is pretty good.
It is.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we have no guests. It's just going to be us. Just hanging
guestless.
Out. Guestless. On purpose, though. We figured we give you guys a break from the amazing content. We bring you back down to earth with like the, low quality content that the 3 of us do. We're going to answer some questions. So if you have some, call them in. Otherwise, we're just going to do a What's on the Bench. It's been a while. So we're going to get caught up.
A minute.
Yeah. And again, Michael, thank you so much for joining us. You're amazing. Keep crushing it. Can't wait to see what you do next. And we'll see you guys all next week.
Super cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Michael.
Love y'all. Bye.
Bye.
Love you long time.